Block 1. The Man Who Walked Away. My name is Elise Hammond, and when I was 8 years old, I watched my father walk out the front door and never come back. No explanation, no goodbye. Just a slammed door, a duffel bag, and the metallic clang of silence as it settled into our home like rot. My mother sat on the kitchen floor that day, holding an unopened envelope in one hand and a crumpled grocery list in the other. She didn't cry. Not then. She just stared at the door, like it might apologize and reopen. It never did, and neither did he. We lived in Bakersfield back then, small-town California, where everyone knew everyone, and shame traveled faster than wildfire. My father, Richard Hammond, was the local golden boy, high school football legend turned small-time contractor, charismatic, handsome, a liar. After he left, Mom picked up 2 jobs, nights at the diner, weekends cleaning houses. I learned how to heat dinner by age 9, how to forge her signature by 10, and how to smile at teachers when they asked if everything was all right at home. It wasn't. But we survived. Barely. Fast forward 20 years. I had a name. Not his. Mine. Elise Hammond. Civil engineer turned renewable energy entrepreneur. At 30, I sold my startup, Celerity Grid, for $8.4 million. It wasn't an overnight success. It was years of sweat, ramen dinners, rejection, and 20-hour workdays. My company built clean energy solutions for underfunded rural communities, the kind of people corporate America liked to forget. I didn't forget, because I remembered everything. The nights without heat, the cars that didn't start, the look on my mother's face when she'd get a pink envelope in the mail and pretend it was just junk. When the acquisition finalized, I wired $500,000 to my mom's account without telling her. She called me sobbing. We thought that was the end of our struggle. We were wrong. Because a week later, I got a letter from a law office in San Diego. It was from my father. He wasn't dead, not broke, not even sorry. He was suing me, claiming partial ownership of Celerity Grid based on preliminary support and intellectual contribution during its conceptual phase. He had attached old sketches, things I had once drawn in a childhood notebook, diagrams of solar panels and wind turbines, notes I had written at age 12. My mother used to keep those drawings in a kitchen drawer like trophies. And now, he was using them as legal ammunition. I laughed at first. Actually laughed. Until my lawyer, Yasmin, called and said, "He's serious. He filed a petition for equitable interest and submitted a claim of advisory involvement." I nearly dropped the phone. He abandoned us. He hasn't contacted me in 2 decades. Doesn't matter. If he can prove any influence, even conceptual, and if he finds a sympathetic judge, he might have a case. And just like that, the man who left with nothing but a duffel bag and debt came back. Not for forgiveness, but for a cut. Of my life, of my success, of everything I'd built without him. I sat there in my office, surrounded by awards, blueprints, contracts, and I felt 8 years old again. But this time, I wasn't going to cry. I was going to fight, and I was going to win. Block 2. The courtroom is a battlefield. Yasmin and I met in her downtown LA office, a sleek glass space filled with law books, LED floor lamps, and an espresso machine that hissed with more confidence than I had that morning. She poured me a shot without asking. "You look like hell," she said flatly. "I feel like hell," I replied. She handed me the espresso, then slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were copies of the lawsuit, Hammond v. Hammond Technologies, Inc. That name, my name, twisted into something hostile. "He's filing for a 30% share," she continued. "He's citing your early education, the solar sketches, the project you did in 10th grade science, the one that won the regional fair. He claims it was inspired by his teachings." "Teachings?" I scoffed. "The man taught me how to disappear. That's it." Yasmin didn't laugh. "It gets worse. He's hired Evelyn Juneau." That stopped me cold. Juneau was a courtroom viper, Former prosecutor turned civil litigation bulldog. She didn't blink, didn't flinch, and she won. A lot. I leaned back in my chair. He's not just doing this to hurt me. He thinks he can win. Yasmin nodded. He's banking on it. I went home that night to my quiet loft in Silver Lake. The walls were lined with books and journals and notes from a decade of building something from nothing. And now it all felt unsafe. Like any moment, another piece of my life would be subpoenaed, twisted, weaponized. I spent the night digging, emails, texts, school records, old photos, anything that could prove Richard Hammond had no involvement. And I realized something that infuriated me more than the lawsuit. He'd watched me, not literally, not through binoculars or hidden cameras, but from afar, through online articles, LinkedIn updates, maybe even the occasional Google alert. He had waited until I succeeded, until I was finally safe. Then he pounced, like a vulture circling a healed wound. My mother was devastated. He doesn't want the money, Elise, she said one morning over coffee. He wants to rewrite history. She was right, and I wasn't going to let him. We filed a countersuit, defamation, emotional distress, malicious prosecution. Yasmin moved quickly, assembling character witnesses, timelines, tax records, old-school projects. We even subpoenaed a therapist I'd seen as a teenager to testify about the trauma his abandonment caused. I wanted everything on record, not just for the court, for me. Because for too long, I had carried his silence like a shadow, and now I was shining a light on every corner he'd left dark. The courtroom was colder than I expected. He sat 2 tables away, clean-shaven, wearing a navy suit. Gray hair neatly combed. He looked like the kind of man you'd trust to sell you a car, or a lie. When he looked at me, he smiled, like we were old friends, like this was a reunion. I stared back, stone-faced. He didn't flinch, but I saw something shift in his eyes. He wasn't prepared for the woman I'd become. He expected the daughter. He met the CEO. The trial was set for 8 weeks out. In those 8 weeks, I would come to learn that justice is not about truth. It's about proof. And I had every intention of providing it, with receipts, records, and rage sculpted into legal strategy. He thought he could take what I built. He had no idea I was just getting started. Block 3. What he forgot about me. The news picked up the story 3 weeks before the trial. A tech blog caught wind of the lawsuit, probably tipped off by Richard's team. The headline was intentionally inflammatory. Solar power heiress, sued by estranged father, claims he was the real brain behind her startup. They ran with a picture of me from a Forbes feature. I was smiling in front of a solar installation site, helmet under my arm, the wind catching strands of my hair. It was a good photo. Now it was a weapon. I sat on my couch at 2 a.m. scrolling through the comment section, a minefield of speculation. If she used his ideas, he deserved something. Typical deadbeat dad trying to cash in. Don't believe anything. These people are all playing the media. Why do women always act like they did it all alone? That one stung, because I had done it alone. And not because I wanted to. Because I had to. The article gave Richard the attention he wanted. He started giving interviews, local press, a YouTube channel, even a podcast that called him a visionary in renewable concepts. He wore it well. The suit, the narrative. I never wanted to be estranged from my daughter, he said. But I am proud of what she says accomplished, even if my part in it has been forgotten. Forgotten? I remembered everything. Like how he drained our savings when I was 7 to buy tools for a mobile auto shop that never left the garage. How he left my mother with 2 months of unpaid rent and a maxed-out credit card the day he vanished. How I used to dig through junk mail looking for coupons so Mom could stretch her second job paycheck. He thought I'd buried those memories, but I'd only buried my rage. Yasmin and I doubled down. We subpoenaed his financial records from the early 2000s, confirmed no taxable income for 4 consecutive years after his departure. We obtained a sworn affidavit from my middle school counselor, confirming the economic hardship notation filed under my student profile. We found a crumpled spiral notebook from my mother's attic, full of doodles, solar panel sketches, and my name signed on the bottom of every page. Not once did his handwriting appear. We tracked down my 10th grade science teacher, Mr. Halverson, who remembered my county fair presentation vividly. Elise used an old pizza box and recycled soda cans to demonstrate solar reflection. I don't recall her father being present for anything. Not drop-off, not prep. It was all her. I cried when I read his statement, because for years I thought nobody had noticed, that all my efforts were invisible. But they weren't. Richard tried to block everything. He motioned to exclude testimony from my counselor, claimed my school projects were inspired by familial conversations, and requested my mother's financial statements be sealed due to privacy concerns. The judge denied all of it, and that's when I realized something terrifying and empowering. He thought this would be easy. He thought I'd be afraid of him. He hadn't counted on me knowing the law better than he did. He hadn't expected my mother to testify, and he definitely hadn't expected my team to find the real reason he reappeared. Because just 5 months before he filed suit, Richard had declared Chapter 13 bankruptcy. He was drowning, and he saw me as a lifeboat. I stood in front of the mirror the night before the trial began. Not the boardroom version of me. No makeup, no heels. Just Elise, daughter of a woman who sacrificed everything, and a man who abandoned her with nothing. I didn't see fear. I saw clarity. He wanted to rewrite the story of who I was. But tomorrow, I'd write it in court, word by word, under oath. And I wasn't writing it for him. I was writing it for every girl who grew up being told she needed a man to complete her. I didn't. I became the woman who outgrew the man who left. Block 4. Trial and error. The courtroom wasn't dramatic, at least not in the Hollywood sense. No gasps, no shouts. Just tension so thick it clung to the skin like humidity, seeping through every glance, every page shuffle, every whisper between attorneys. I sat at the plaintiff's table, flanked by Yasmin and our paralegal, watching as Richard entered like he belonged there, like he hadn't abandoned us. He wore that same smug calm, the kind people mistake for innocence, or worse, entitlement. He nodded at the jury. He winked at me. My jaw clenched so tight I nearly cracked a molar. Opening statements came fast. Evelyn Juneau, his attorney, played the sympathy card early. She painted Richard as a misunderstood father, a non-traditional visionary who lacked the resources to nurture his daughter's brilliance, but planted the seed all the same. "This is not a case of theft," she told the jury. "This is a case of acknowledgement." Yasmin stood, heels sharp against marble. "This is not about acknowledgement. This is about opportunism." Mr. Hammond contributed nothing to the development of Celerity Grid. Not financially, not intellectually, not emotionally. His reappearance coincides directly with his bankruptcy, and his attempt to seize credit is built on a fabricated connection to childhood drawings he never even saw. Round 1, reality check. Then came witness testimonies. My mother was first. She stood tall, her voice clear, though her hands trembled as she spoke of the night Richard left. She described our financial struggle, the eviction notices, the time she pawned her wedding ring to pay for my AP test fees. The courtroom was silent when she said, "Elise built her future in the shadow of his absence. Every dollar she earned, every idea she developed, that was hers, not his. He didn't raise a daughter. He abandoned a girl who became a woman on her own." When she stepped down, she glanced at me. Not to seek validation, but to offer it. Then came Mr. Halverson, my science teacher. He brought a photo from the science fair. There I was, braces, glasses, holding a hand-painted trifold board that said, "Harnessing Tomorrow." My mom had taken the picture. She was the only parent there. Yasmin entered it into evidence. Evelyn tried to dismiss it as irrelevant nostalgia. The judge allowed it. The jury leaned in. But Richard? He wasn't rattled. When he took the stand, he looked relaxed. Like this was a reunion show, not a trial. He spun stories. How he once sketched solar designs with Elise at the dinner table. How he taught her the basics of light refraction. How he always knew she'd do great things. Yasmin pressed hard on cross. Can you provide documentation of these teachings? No, it was informal. Were you present at her science fair? No, I was working. Where were you employed at the time? He hesitated. That's when we hit him with it. Yasmin slid a document forward, a tax record. You reported 0 income for that year, no job, no employment history. In fact, Mr. Hammond, were you even residing with your family at the time of this alleged instruction? He fumbled, then lied. We showed the lease termination from our old apartment, dated 2 months before the fair. He wasn't working. He wasn't even there. Back at our table, Yasmin scribbled a note and passed it to me. We're breaking him. Stay steady. But my hands didn't shake. My mind didn't race. Because in that moment I saw it clearly. This wasn't just about him stealing from me. This was about taking back the truth. And when I took the stand the next morning, I didn't testify with rage. I testified with memory. The late nights, the rejections, the mentor meetings, the loan I took to buy our first warehouse, the first time I paid my mother's mortgage with my own money, and the deafening absence of the man now sitting across from me, hoping a judge would gift him my legacy like a door prize. I didn't build Celerity Grid because of my father, I said. I built it in spite of him. And everything I created is mine. Block 5. Proof and pressure. By day 4 of the trial, Richard's narrative had begun to crumble, not with an explosion, but with quiet fractures that widened with every witness, every rebuttal, every inconsistency in his statements. Evelyn Juneau tried to redirect, tried to reframe. She argued that the father-daughter bond, even fractured, could inspire brilliance. There are forms of influence that exist beyond proximity, she told the jury. Even an absent parent can shape a child's drive. Yasmin pounced. We're not here to debate philosophy, she shot back. We're here to examine facts. And the fact is, Mr. Hammond was not a mentor, a supporter, or even present. He was a ghost. And now, he wants to rewrite history because his financial ruin left him desperate. It was surgical. The next blow came from our forensic accountant. He walked the jury through Richard's bankruptcy filing, noting multiple discrepancies, including a sudden transfer of funds from a shell company created 2 months prior to the lawsuit. Funds that coincidentally matched the retainer paid to Evelyn Juneau. In your expert opinion, Yasmin asked, what does this suggest? That the lawsuit was funded with borrowed money funneled through a front, likely to avoid revealing financial motive and vulnerability. So, not a pursuit of justice, a calculated investment? Exactly. The jury took notes. Evelyn objected. The judge overruled. Outside the courtroom, media interest exploded. Celerity Grid's PR team advised me to stay silent. But I released a statement anyway. Not angry, not vengeful, just clear. Every achievement I've earned was rooted in resilience, not legacy. I won't allow my past to be revised by those who abandoned it. It went viral. Har Built Not Given trended for 3 days. Young women, especially in tech, began sharing their own stories, of fathers who doubted them, bosses who tried to take credit, exes who downplayed their ideas. We weren't just telling my story anymore. We were telling ours. Then came the turning point. Yasmin called a surprise witness, Richard's ex-girlfriend. He hadn't seen her in 20 years. She took the stand and swore under oath that during the first 5 years of his absence, Richard had lived with her, gambling, drinking, and bragging that he dodged the dead weight of fatherhood. Evelyn tried to discredit her, but we had emails, we had receipts, we had a pattern. By week 2, Richard was no longer smiling. His hands fidgeted, his posture slouched. The man who entered the courtroom with a polished suit and polished lies now looked worn, not humbled, but exposed. Yasmin leaned into the final phase with precision. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is not about family. It's about fraud. About a man who left a girl to fight for her future, then returned decades later to claim it as his own. But legacy isn't a birthright. It's earned. And Elise Hammond earned hers alone. The courtroom was still. Even Evelyn Juneau said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. I looked at Richard one last time, before the jury was dismissed for deliberation. He looked back. And for the first time, I didn't see a monster. I saw a man undone by his own illusion. He had spent a lifetime running from responsibility, only to chase the one thing he couldn't fake: worth. And he'd lost. Because you can't steal something you never helped build. Block 6. The verdict and the echo. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. 5 hours where time didn't move. It just stalled, like the second before a car crash. I sat in the hallway, knees drawn up, staring at the floor tiles while Yasmin paced with quiet intensity beside me. "They're taking their time," she said. "That's bad, right?" "Not necessarily. They're reading everything." "That's good." I nodded, but it didn't feel good. I felt like I'd spent the last month holding my breath, and now, every exhale burned. When we were called back in, the bailiff's voice boomed. "All rise." The jury filed in. No eye contact, faces neutral. The foreperson, a woman in her 60s with a meticulous ponytail and kind eyes, stood. In the matter of Hammond versus Hammond Technologies, Inc., we find in favor of the defendant, Elise Hammond. My lungs worked again, but she wasn't done. We further award the defendant compensatory damages of $1.2 million and punitive damages of $3.5 million to be paid by the plaintiff for malicious prosecution and reputational harm. Gasps echoed. Richard slumped. His team froze. Yasmin didn't smile. Not yet. She just whispered, "We did it." But I wasn't hearing her. I was staring at the man who gave me nothing and then tried to steal everything, now looking at me like I had just rewritten his fate in front of him. Because I had. We stepped outside into a wall of flashing lights and microphones. "Elise, do you have a comment? What will you do with the damages? What do you say to women in similar situations?" I paused, looked at the cameras, and said, "This wasn't about money. This was about memory, and who gets to own it. I didn't just defend my company. I defended the girl who waited by the window for a father who never came back. Today, she finally got closure." That line went viral, again. In the weeks that followed, the media spun it every way. David and Goliath, in reverse. Tech queen buries deadbeat dad in court. But the part that mattered never made headlines. It was the message I received from a stranger in Iowa. "My father left too. I didn't think I mattered until I saw your story. Thank you for proving we can win, even if we start with nothing." That one I printed out and kept in my office, framed, because it reminded me what this was really about. I never spoke to Richard again. He tried once. A letter, handwritten, mailed to our corporate office. Yasmin intercepted it and handed it to me sealed. I never opened it, because no apology changes the choices we make, and no excuse erases the truth we build in their aftermath. I didn't need his words. I had mine. 6 months later, I launched a foundation, the Shadow Project. Its mission? To fund legal support for young women disinherited, defrauded, or financially manipulated by estranged family members. We've helped over 300 cases since launch. Because betrayal doesn't end in court, but neither does justice. And my mother? She finally stopped renting. We bought a house together in Ojai, sun-drenched, surrounded by orange groves. It's quiet, peaceful. She tends to her garden. I tend to what I've grown. Every night, I sit on the porch and look at the stars, not searching for something missing, but grateful for what was found. Because I didn't just survive him. I eclipsed him. With legacy. With truth. With light he'll never claim.